Hi all, welcome to my channel Santosh on Tech. In this video, we are going to discuss about AWS VPC Peering connection. If you find value in this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So let's get started. When working in the AWS, it's quite common to find that single company has many VPCs and many AWS accounts. This can be management nightmare, especially if separate accounts and separate VPCs might need to be connected to share resources or common services, such as monitoring and authentication. Thankfully, you can create network connections between VPCs through a process called peering, which enables you to route traffic between VPCs that have been peered together. So you can see over here that the VPC1 is peered with the VPC2 so that all the instances from the VPC1 can communicate to the VPC2 and vice versa. Peering can be carried out between your own account VPCs or between a VPC assigned to another AWS account. So the VPC1 and VPC2 can be in the same account, or the VPC1 can be in one account and VPC2 can be in another AWS account, and we can have peering connection between them. Traffic using inter-region VPC peering always stays on the global AWS backbone and never traverse the public internet, thereby reducing threat vectors such as common exploits and DDoS attacks. So, if your peering VPCs like VPC1 and VPC2 belongs to the same region, the traffic between those two VPCs will be carried out privately on the AWS infrastructure. It never leaves AWS internet network. But what about the VPCs which are in other region? Say suppose VPC3 is in one region and VPC2 it belongs to the another region. So how the traffic between the VPC3 and VPC2 will be secure? So the data traffic between VPCs peered in different regions is encrypted using AEAD encryption, which uses the authenticated encryption with the associated data protocol. With AEAD encryption, AWS manages the entire encryption process and supplies and rotates the encryption keys. AWS uses the existing infrastructure of a VPC to create VPC peering connections and do not rely on the separate piece of physical hardware. Therefore, they do not introduce potential single point of failure or network bandwidth bottleneck between VPCs. Additionally, VPC routing tables, security groups, and network access control list can be leveraged to control which subnets or instances are able to utilize the VPC peering connections. So to add additional security, we can configure the VPC route table, security groups, NACLs, that is network access control list. A peering connection is set up by first sending an invitation from one VPC to the another. So here you can see on left side you have requester VPC and on right side we have acceptor VPC. So the requester VPC sends the connection request to the acceptor VPC, which acceptor VPC need to accept in order to establish VPC peering connection. Peering within the same AWS account involves using the each VPC IDs for identification. Peering VPCs between different AWS accounts requires both VPC ID and account ID so that we can identify the particular VPC. So this is how the VPC connection is established. A requester request for the VPC peering connection request to the another VPC with which we want to establish a peering connectivity, and acceptor VPC need to accept that request in order to establish peering connection. So let's go over some important points to be remembered for the VPC peering connections. VPC peering connections cannot be created between VPCs that have matching or overlapping IPv4 addresses. So it can be IPv4 or IPv6, right? So the CIDR blocks should not overlap. So you can see the first diagram over here. So VPC A and VPC B, they both want to establish a peering connection, but the problem is they are having overlapping IPv4 addresses. So you can see the CIDR block over here, which is 10.0.0.0, VPC-A/16 and the VPC-B, which is again having the same CIDR block. So these VPCs cannot establish connections. Peering is not allowed if there is overlap between the CIDR blocks. Next is VPC peering connection can be established between your own VPCs or with a VPC in another AWS account in a different region. So you can establish a VPC peering connections between the two VPCs which are in the same region, either those are in same account or different AWS accounts. And also you can establish a peering connections between the VPC which are in different regions. So VPC-A and VPC-C are paired together. So VPC-A can reside in same AWS account as VPC-C, or they can be in different AWS accounts. At the same time, VPC-A and VPC-C can be in the same region or different region. We can establish a peering connection between them. Next is VPC peering connection does not support transitive relationship. What does it mean? So here you can see VPC-A is connected to the VPC-C through the peering connection. Then VPC-A is again connected to the VPC-B through the peering connections. So the VPC-B can communicate to the VPC-A through the peering connection, and VPC-A can communicate to the VPC-C through the other peering connection. So is it possible that B can communicate with the C through these peering connections from A? No, this is not possible. So this is called a transitive relationship, and transitive relationship is not supported in VPC peered connections. If VPC B and C want to communicate to each other, they need to have a separate VPC peering connections between them. Next is a VPC can have multiple relationship with the other VPCs, but only one peering connections can be established between the same two VPCs at the same time. So what does it mean? So you can see VPC A is having connection with the VPC C, and again the VPC A is having connection with the VPC B. So it has a two peering connection with two different VPCs. But can it have a two parallel connection between the two VPC, like VPC A is having one connection already? Can it have one more peering connection with the VPC C? No, this is not supported. Between any two VPCs, we can have only one peering connection, not more than that. But one VPC can have more than one peering connections with two or multiple different VPCs. Next is instance public DNS can now be resolved to its private IP address across peer VPCs. So say suppose VPCC is having some EC2 instances. So can we resolve these EC2 instances DNS names through the peered connections from VPC-A? So can we query the DNS name of EC2 instance in VPC-C from VPC-A through the peered connection? So answer is yes. I think this was not supported earlier to 2016, but from 2016 this support was added. You can now enable resolution of public DNS host names to private IP addresses when queried from peered VPC. This functionality is also supported cross-account, so the two VPCs can be in different accounts. This feature simplifies the DNS setup for VPC peering connections. So the next is, in a VPC peering connection, the VPC does not have access to any other connections that the peer VPC may have, and vice versa. So the connections that peer VPC can have includes a VPN connection, or AWS direct connection, or internet connection through the internet gateway, or internet connections through the NAT devices, or VPC endpoint connection to the AWS services such as S3 or DynamoDB. So let's understand what does it mean. So say you have VPC-B and VPC-A, and you have peering connection established between them. And here the VPC-A is connected to the corporate network, your data center, through the VPN. So we have VPN connection over here. So is it possible that the VPC-B can communicate to the corporate network through the VPN connections through this peering connections. So this is not supported. VPCB cannot communicate through the peering connections to the VPCA to the corporate network through the VPN connection which is attached to the VPCA. So the VPC cannot communicate to the VPN connection attached to the VPC at the other side of the peering connection. On the similar line, say suppose VPCA is connecting to the internet, maybe some of the EC2 instances from the VPCA are connected to the internet gateway as it as they has routes for the internet gateway. So what are the subnets are there in the VPCA which contains routes to the internet gateway may be able to connect to the internet gateway. Is it possible that instances from VPC-B can communicate to the internet through the internet gateway attached to the VPC-A through the peer connection? So this is not supported. VPC cannot communicate to the internet through the internet gateway at the other end of the peered connection. So this is not supported. Similar to the internet gateway and VPN connection, say suppose VPC-A is now connected to the Amazon S3 through the VPC endpoint, and VPC-A and B are connected with the peered connection. So can the VPC-B talk to the S3 through the peered connection to the A? So VPC-B can talk to the A, and from A, can it talk to the Amazon S3 through the VPC endpoint? No, this is not possible. VPCs cannot talk to the VPC endpoint at the other end of peered connection. On the similar line, it cannot talk to the AWS direct connections, which is at the other end of the peered connection. Similarly, it cannot talk to the internet through the NAT devices, which are at other end of the peer connections. Next is security group rules cannot reference a VPC security group across a peered connection. Directing outbound traffic from one side of the peered connection to a security group on the other side of the peered connection is not allowed. So if we have any security group defined in VPCB and say suppose you have SG1 and in VPCA you have SG2, you cannot refer SG2 from VPCB even though they are connected with the VPC peering connection, and vice versa, you cannot refer SG2 from the VPCA. So that is pretty much about VPC peering connections. If you like this video and find value in it, please share, like and subscribe, which will keep me motivated to create more of such videos. So stay tuned for the next video. It will be coming on the VPC endpoints. Thank you. See you in the next video.